the document that you have is definitely a draft document. I intend in November or December to completely revisit this and go through this process again. Not exactly sure what it's going to look like, but I feel like we're going to have a budget amendment. At this point, there's so much uncertainty with what the revenue picture is going to look like from the state. I can sort of figure out where I think our local revenues might land, our business tax, lodging, meals tax, that sort of thing. I can sort of pinpoint those. The unknown for me is a lot of our state revenues. So the theory, what John and I talked about and decided to do was to essentially level fund everything from last year. There are some exceptions to that. We did see some significant increases in some of our insurance, our workers' comp, our VRS retirement, our group life, and our disability insurance. So those things I had to build in to this. There was an extra position granted from the comp board to the Commonwealth Attorney's office, and then there had been a half a position that we had agreed to last July. So there are increases in here. It's not true level funded, but everywhere we could level fund, we did. And just anticipation of redoing this document or this budget later when we have a better picture of what some of those revenues are going to look like.
A little bit of the rationale there, for probably the better part of the decade, most departments have been level funded or near level funded. And it's not like you have a whole lot of, you haven't had a whole lot of growth on the revenue side, you haven't had a whole lot of growth on the expenditure side. We're not heavily reliant on the hospitality taxes. And so the thought is that because we haven't had much growth over that decade, it would be very hard to ask departments to try to operate with less than they already have today.
The other big thing that you'll notice with this, and as we go through it a little bit, you'll see this. We did, as we have discussed in the joint meetings with Covington on the shared services for the Sheriff's Department, we did peel out law enforcement, courts, and jail services, corrections, into their own fund. So those things have come out of the general fund, although we have to have an inter-fund transfer from the general fund. So the money still comes out of the general fund, but it goes into this other fund. By creating this other fund in this document and in our budget, you essentially double that amount. We're not paying it twice, but on the accounting side, you double it. So that has increased these numbers and might look a little odd. So, but we'll go through this and you stop me, you can ask questions. And any questions right now before we start? I'm just going to hit some of the highlights and the things I know are going to be a little odd looking. CIT assessment jumps out. Okay, and the other thing about this document is just to remind you, you see in the middle of it, the fiscal year 20 is what we adopted. And then in the yellow, the fiscal year 21 is what the department's asked for. And then the 21 department recommendation is essentially what we are suggesting be funded. The next column, you see 20 versus 21 budget. So that is comparing what the recommendation is to what was adopted in 20. The following column is the request versus the recommendation. So that's what the department's asked for and what the recommendation is. So one of the big ones that looks odd is the CIT assessment, because that was something that that's a newer. Kevin, when we just started that, not too. I don't think it's even been a full.
I think last year in February is when we hired them, and then we actually started getting the funding in July 1st.
It was at the end of the year, so that sort of sticks out as something, but it's new, and that does have revenue that goes with it because it's grant funded. E911, a lot of that is you're seeing those expenses of the radio system. The debt service is in there. It is fully loaded with all the cell tower rentals, and it's up at the level where it is going to be.
Is that for the full year?
Yes.
It's not part of the year or something like that?
Correct.
It's full year. It should be that from now on.
Yes.
What's the annual payment?
I can look that up for you. Maybe. Ron, do you know what that debt service is off the top of your head?
For what? Which part?
The radio system?
Our payment this coming year for debt service is
350 here.
350, 360 range.
353, 364 is the annual debt service.
That's for this year though.
Yes. For 21.
Yes. For that coming year.
Yes.
As we have debt coming off in future years, that payment will increase. And it was set up that way because we have debt coming off in future years that will offset.
You lightened it up in the early years for cash flow purposes. You're going to take money that we used to spend it somewhere else and just move it over and accelerate payments.
Your the two buildings down
Yes.
the road here, the debt service for those, the two school buildings, Clifton Middle and Mountain View, the debt service portion for those buildings comes off in
Next year.
fiscal 22, and that's when the debt service, the majority of the debt service for this project will come on.
I remember now.
But it's still
About that.
it still doesn't eat up that entire, still doesn't eat up the entire, the new revenue versus what comes off it doesn't consume all of that. There's still some difference between the revenue the debt service that comes off and the new debt service that comes on. I don't remember the number, but
How did we set up the E911 payment schedule? 20 years.
15.
Does anybody remember?
How long is the debt service? I believe it's 15 years.
15 years.
Nothing matters for the budget now. I just wondered.
I'm fairly confident it's 15.
I can look that up.
And what you're showing is our portion, not ours and Covington's where we used to bill it back, right?
We both issued debt.
Okay, that's,
Yeah, that's just ours.
It's two separate contracts, so Covington takes care of their own. Yes.
That looks like the last debt payment is going to be 2033. So, all right. I did put a line in here. We created a department for the COVID expenses. I have no idea, earthly idea, what to budget in there. I pulled $40,000 just as almost a placeholder, just to. It's hard to say. So that is in there. And again, just keep in mind, we're going to revisit this and rework this, and we will have a budget amendment at some time during the year to clean this up, and hopefully I will have a better picture of what those expenses will be. Might be 40, might be 10 more. Any guesses, Ryan?
Oh, not at this point.
But keep in mind, that's what this program, we just can we'll have to make an amendment to the budget regardless. We'll have to, if we receive the funds in early June, we're going to have to amend this year's budget to account for the receipt of almost $650,000, and then we'll receive a second amount of money from the state, a second disbursement of those funds. So we'll have to amend your budget for those sometime in the next fiscal for an equal amount for these dollars from the state, which will offset those costs, but we just don't know what they are right now.
Then we have to send them a check back because we don't use what PPP money for.
If you go to the next
But
page.
there is a possibility we're talking about item 3511.
Yes.
There's a good possibility that 40,000 can be replaced with.
Yes, sir.
There is likely going to be revenue for that. And I plugged some in on the revenue side under FEMA. The $1 million question is, what's that dollar amount going to end up being?
Nobody knows.
I have a dartboard I've been using for this.
Well, I think you probably need that software installed on your laptop so you can work from home while you do that.
I think so.
Yeah.
See if we can slide that in with FEMA. So if you go to the next page, the next, you'll see a.
Give me that.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
Why did refuse disposal drop $60,000?
It's not, that's what that's their request. They asked for 60,000 more than we're recommending.
Okay.
They're level funded. The yellow.
At the 905. All right, I'm with you now.
Okay. With everybody being home and cleaning out their houses, we might have to increase that, I don't know. On the next page, the next big thing that will jump out at you is going to be the contingency, because we did try to put as much in contingency as we can for the unknown. We did have some revenue increases in other categories that I do not necessarily think are going to be affected. Again, can't be 100% sure. So instead of fulfilling all the department requests, kept it at level and put the extra in contingency to deal with whatever comes. The next thing you'll see that's going to jump out is the transfers to other funds.
Well, just that new revenue, probably 2 years ago, we all were at the farmers market, and there was an announcement. There was a massive project at West Rock, and so that's finally coming. That's coming in, and so that new revenue source is in our machinery and tools tax from that investment that West Rock made in the community 2 years ago on the rebuild of the #1 machine.
The money you're putting in contingency, where's it coming from?
It's basically coming from that increase in machinery and tools.
It's coming from the capital investment West Rock made in the #1 paper machine.
That's why that's not something I don't think is going to be affected. Because
That's not understood.
it's capital, so I don't think it's vulnerable, but again, I don't think anything's 100% at this point. For the transfers to other funds, that is significant because that is where we are moving money from the general fund to the new department for the joint services of the Sheriff's Department functions with Covington. And then we'll see that fund on down below here in a minute, but that's where that money is going to go down to that fund. And then you'll see the 3 large negative amounts. That is where we no longer have those 3 departments in the general fund. So those 2 things offset each other. They're just large numbers that sort of jump out.
Everybody good with that?
Just have one question,
Mhm.
Commonwealth Attorney.
Mm-hmm.
We're just the fiscal agent for that, or is that, how much of that is mandated? I mean, it's an elected position or a constitutional officer, but with the amount there, how many employees is that in their office?
And they have 2 vacancies right now they've been trying to fill. They had a part-time attorney, and last July we made that full-time. Or they requested, because it was something with the body cameras.
Yeah, it was legislated to you that you had to provide that a new full-time position in the Commonwealth Attorney's office.
Because of the body camera time, they had to.
Correct. So you were, that position's not comp board funded. It was mandated to the local governments to fund that position. So what the Commonwealth, what Ms. Gardner did was she had the part-time position, and she, instead of asking for a new full-time position, she converted that part-time position to a full-time position there. But you had that was non-negotiable.
So with level funding and them being 2 positions short, they could have surplus at the end of the year, much like.
That's correct, because with vacancies, we always budget for family plan insurance, for example. If someone comes in and waives insurance altogether, that's $20,000 lower expense. We just have to budget for it at the max. And they did receive from the comp board another position in the middle of the year during this fiscal year 20, and we brought that back at some point, I don't remember exactly when, and put the revenue into the budget and then put the expense in this current fiscal year. So that's both of those positions there that you see reflected.
But most of those expenses are split with the city covering.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct.
So,
Is that the total amount, or is that our portion?
That's the total amount, because we pay all the expenses.
Right.
We essentially write all the checks, and then on the back end is where we settle up, if you will.
I was just looking at anything over 500,000 to see that.
Yeah.